Well, it's hello from him.
Richard Moore, and it's hello from her.
It's Michelle Monro again. And Richard and I are delighted to welcome another special guest to our podcast channel this month. Now, he's an accomplished artist and singer, writes, records, films, produces and edits all his own material. He's played at Wembley Arena and the O2 in the UK and appeared in front of 10 million people on terrestrial TV. Now, his knowledge of music theory, guitar playing expertise and ability to explain complex concepts has amassed a following of over 490,000 YouTube subscribers and over 100 million views. So please welcome the multi-talented Fil Henley.
Hello! What an introduction that was. Thank you very much.
That's the highlight.
Yeah, well, that's I haven't heard that all back before, but
it's nice of you to agree to do it. We're delighted.
That's no problem at all. I'm delighted to be here, and thanks for the invitation.
You're more than welcome. Now, you've been teaching guitar professionally for more than 15 years and playing live for nearly 3 decades. But how did your love affair with guitar and music start?
Well, a long time ago. It was when I was probably around the age of 11, and I'm kind of from the era where my dad had his record collection, vinyls, and I wasn't allowed to put them on the turntable because of the needle, obviously, and damaging them. So I had to wait for him to put on whichever records he would put on, and he would always put on Jimi Hendrix. So I kind of got used to that kind of sound when I was probably earlier than 11. But when I was 11, I started to then figure out that, this is guitar. My dad played guitar, and I then kind of made that connection that, I want to do whatever this is. So, I started trying to pick up what I could just from listening to the recordings. Nowadays, kids just type it into YouTube and say, what's this person doing? And they can watch somebody demonstrating it. Whereas, back in the day, you just had to listen because, videos, especially of Jimi Hendrix, when I was a kid, they weren't around, they weren't available. So, I kind of, I guess, started tuning my ears at that point to try and figure out what was going on, where that note was on the guitar, all that kind of stuff. And my dad just showed me a few chords to begin with on guitar, and I think it's quite good that he basically just left me to it and said, well, here are the basics, but go and try and figure it out for yourself. And I think that now looking back on it, that's probably the best way to learn, is to listen rather than look, because I think you can appreciate so much more about music as well, as being able to listen to things. And I guess what I do now, break things down and explain what's going on and why things sound the way that they do. But that's it.
Was he a professional musician?
No, he wasn't. Just recreationally. He was in various bands and trying to get somewhere, but he did lots of different things. Like, he was a sportsman as well, so he kind of did that in his 20s and his 30s. So I think when he was younger, it would have been great, for him to have gotten a break in music, but it just didn't happen that way. So it was more of a recreational thing that he did. So cool. I mean, I did the sports thing as well, and football was our sport. And I got to a decent level until about the age of 20, and then I decided that I wanted to do music. And I've got the opinion that if you want to succeed in something, you just got to focus on that one thing. So I just put all my eggs in the music basket when I was 20, and I then started teaching guitar when I was 23. So by that time I've been playing for about 12 years. And that was in a shop that I did that. I was kind of the guitar teacher for the shop. And that then continued. And on YouTube, obviously I was kind of playing live and had my own band, all that kind of stuff, and played in and around London, and, playing pubs and clubs and doing the independent musician thing, which I think probably nowadays is, especially since COVID, has kind of taken a bit of a nosedive, like getting out there, playing live, and building a following and kind of working on your craft that way. So I think that I'm lucky that I kind of went through that, and learned a lot on the road, kind of thing.
Listening to music growing up, who would you say was your biggest influence then?
Okay, well, I've probably got to say Jimi Hendrix, because that's really where I started off playing guitar. But then I got into blues players like Gary Moore. And when I first heard, Eric Clapton, of course, but when I first heard Eddie Van Halen, that's the thing that kind of turned my head and thought, what is all that about? Because I hadn't heard anything like that before. So I started listening to Van Halen, and then players like Steve Vai and Joe Satriani, and just listened to lots of different guitar players. But I didn't necessarily want to copy one of them.
No,
I was just listening to kind of how they played, and put all of the blues and the techniques that I liked. And I was into kind of 80s hard rock, which started with Van Halen, but then into more obscure bands, and bands like Winger that not a lot of people know. And there's a guitarist called Red Beach who did kind of quite a lot of tapping, and I was interested by that because of the Van Halen sound as well. So I went down that hard rock avenue, and melodic hard rock as well, like bands like Mr. Mister and all that kind of stuff. So I was very much just a guitarist, and I was teaching guitar. And it just so happened that in my late 20s, for my band, we lost the singer, and he left the band, and we couldn't find another singer. And it took a year. We'd been auditioning for a year, and we thought, well, we want to get out there and play live again at some point. So I thought, well, it's going to be quicker for me to learn to sing than to find a singer. So then in my late 20s started my vocal journey of then learning to sing.
We'll get to that, yes.
Yeah.
Now, listen, in Dad's early years, he could be found entering the Beginners Please Talent contest, trying to make a name for himself. Now, in 2013, you auditioned on X Factor. Well, what made you go down that route?
Yes, so this is something that I think actually a lot of my subscribers don't know about. But, I mean, the hardcore fans and subscribers, that they do know the story behind this. So, I'm not a big fan of talent shows. And, I've been quite vocal about that in the past, but I wanted to show that going on a TV talent show isn't about talent. If you just act up and you act a bit crazy, you will get put in front of other genuine musicians and genuine singers.
And if you put tattoos on.
Exactly. So, for this particular I don't know whether to call it a stunt or not, but I put on like fake tattoos, and was topless, and ran around the crowd and was just ridiculous. And actually a lot of the stuff that happened got cut out of the final audition, because I also smashed up the judges' glasses on stage and went a little bit crazy. But I thought, well, I've got to do stuff that hasn't been done before.
Well, that was Sharon Osbourne's fault, wasn't it? Because at your first audition, she said you were too tame.
Yeah.
For a rock star,
Yeah. So, I mean...
So you took that to heart and started smashing everything up.
Well, this is it. That I kind of... Because I've seen the shows in the past, I know how they work. So I thought, if I'm going to do this, they can't see that... obviously they don't do a lot of research, so they didn't see that I was an independent musician and my background. So I thought, well, I've got to do it in a way that they don't think, oh, this guy's just taking the mick. He's not really here to try and get further in the show, or to get to the final or whatever. So anyway, the other side of it was that I wanted to kind of prove that point, but also I wanted to, and I did, much against the producer's will, I played one of my own songs, which I own the publishing rights to. So it means that whenever my audition is shown, Simon Cowell has to pay me to show that particular audition. So that was my other side of it. As first of all, you got the point about talent shows that I'm not a big fan of, but also the importance of publishing rights. That independent musicians, if you can get exposure, if you can do something that might be seen a lot and it's televised or might be played on the radio, you want to make sure that you get paid for them playing your music. So that was the other side of it. And obviously people watching it that maybe don't know the backstory, don't fully appreciate that there was a reason behind exactly what I was doing. And in the first 4 producer auditions that you don't actually see. The producer auditions before the TV stage. Everyone thinks that everyone's queuing up and then you go in front of these, celebrity judges. But there are 4 auditions before that. And that's where all the footage is taken from people queuing up. Because by the time you get to the actual celebrity auditions, there's very few people left, maybe a few hundred. So you go through all of that. And in those auditions, I didn't do anything apart from walk out of the room, and they put me through because normal people don't do that. So I think there's a bit of an attraction there. They thought, oh, this guy's a bit crazy. So then the next audition, I did the same thing. The next audition, I did the same thing, and they put me through all the way through to the celebrity auditions. And then I just said, like for the first one, to the person outside, I said, what hasn't anybody done yet? And they said, oh, well, nobody's kind of walked around the logo or got up on the table. So that's exactly what I did, and then got through to the next round. So I mean, it was great that it was kind of proving my point, but also it's kind of having a serious point to it about I think a lot of musicians don't think about the publishing side and the money side, because there are so many musicians who give away their songs for free, and they'll record an album and they'll just put it out there. And even recently I've worked with musicians who have done that, and I've said to them, why are you releasing, like, you've just worked for like 8 months on your album every day for hours and hours and hours, and you're giving away all of your time for nothing. And unfortunately I think a lot of musicians are just that way inclined, that they're creative and they do all of that. As soon as you start thinking about marketing and money and making it financially viable, that's where it becomes really difficult, because you have to, I guess, do your homework on that side of things, and think about your margins and think, right, if I sell an album for that amount, how much am I making? Does it make it sustainable so that I can make a living from it? And how many do I need to sell to get to the point where I can pay my rent every month and all that kind of stuff? So but anyway, that was the...
You don't regret doing it then?
No, not at all. In fact, I've got the auditions where I walked out of the room. I've got that all on hard drives because I filmed it on like GoPro cameras. So everyone can see exactly what I was doing from the beginning, that it was never me doing serious auditions. It's just kind of crazy the whole way through. But no, in terms of making my point, I don't regret doing that at all.
Cool. Well, Dad played the world famous Araneta Coliseum in the Philippines, selling out to the 42,000 seater for 4 nights in a row, outselling Nat King Cole and the Beatles. Now, that was a big accomplishment back in the 60s, before the advent of the technology we have today. Now, you've live streamed a gig to 26 countries at the same time. How did that come about, and what was it like?
So, well, because I do everything myself, and this is before the days of like we're doing now, live streams that are so easy to set up, and you can connect to a server that you don't own and all that kind of stuff. So I don't know how many years ago this was, but I had to rent a server in Germany in order to kind of make it all happen. So there was that side of things, the technical side, which took a lot of working through, and then there was the actual show itself, of thinking, right, how am I going to rehearse this? How am I going to record it so that everything works? So, when I was actually playing, I had computers like the other side of the camera. There's actually 3 cameras that were set up. And I had computers the other side so that I could occasionally kind of have a look up to make sure the live stream was still live. So, it was complicated. And how it came about was just because of gradually building up a following, for my music, and I just did that the old school way, and I don't think there's really any secret to it, that I had my music and had my album, and I just thought, how can I get my music out there? And I thought, well, if I start approaching people that like Bon Jovi and White Snake and songs that are a little bit similar, and Mr. Melodic hard rock stuff, I thought, well, if I go to their Twitter pages, and you can get a list of the people that follow those accounts. So I would go through the list of people and just message them all independently saying, oh, hi, I saw that you followed, Mr. Would you mind checking out my music? Because it's a similar kind of thing. And, I'd appreciate it if you could, but, you don't have to. So I did that. And I did that over 100,000 times. So I messaged over 100,000 people, which probably took the best part of 3 years. But then throughout that period, people might think that sounds crazy, but I think if you really want to do something,
you're passionate. That's obvious.
Yeah. Like people often say, "Oh, I'll do anything to do this or to do that."
Do it.
Yeah, and you think, well, if they say I'll do anything, I say, well, what about spending 3 or 4 hours a day messaging people continuously for 3 years?
Oh, I haven't got time for that.
Yeah, so I can't do that. I said, well, that's not anything then, is it? So yeah, I kind of gradually built up that following, and that's where it got to the point where there was an audience that were wanting to see a live performance, and I thought, well, because I've done it all through the internet, and these people that follow these different bands are all over the place in lots of different countries, how can I get it to work so that they can all watch me at the same time? And that's how the whole live stream thing came about.
So I don't mean to be rude, because as I said to you earlier off camera, I know nothing about technology. Did you make money from that then?
Yes, yeah.
People click to watch the stream?
So what I have is my website, which is wingsofpegasus.com. I had tickets on there that people can buy. Yeah, just click on it and it goes through, credit card details, whatever, and then they can get access to that. So, yeah, luckily that side of it, that was all done through the website, and I pay, like £30 a month, something like that, and that's all something that they do. So I didn't have to worry about the financial side. All I did really was think, right, well, the amount of time this is taking me to set up, how much should the tickets be and all that kind of stuff. But
plus you had to pay for that place,
the server in Germany.
Germany.
Well, exactly.
That's cool.
That's it. Yeah, it's all kind of figuring out everything, how much it's cost, and then what you need to charge in order to first of all break even, but then make a profit so that you can continue doing what you're doing.
Richard, I need to start playing guitar, obviously. Now, talking guitars, you're currently endorsed by Fender. So what does that entail?
Well, it entails nothing really, because
my kind of endorsement.
Yeah, to be quite honest. Now, I went to Fender, and this was years ago, and they're great, and they gave me an amp and said but they actually had the professional series Fender, which is what they were releasing at that time. They said, we can give you one of these, like, how do you want it, what color do you want it in, and what do you want it to look like, and the specs, all that kind of stuff. So I said, all right, well, I'll have this and this and this. So they sent that off to me and sent me an amp as well, and sent me about 1 million different kind of Fender products. And they said years ago, and this is probably where I haven't made the most of my opportunity, but they said years ago, anything you need, just let us know, and we'll send it over to you. And if you occasionally mention things on the channel, that's great. And I haven't requested anything in those 3 years. So
You're obviously not like me. You're not Jewish, are you?
No. So this is it. Yeah. So having all of these different potential pieces of equipment and amps and guitars and things, I don't know. I tend to be so busy. I'm so focused on what I'm doing that I'm never really thinking about, I must have a look at that new thing that has been released and all that kind of stuff. So yeah, it is what it is. It's great. It's great. And
how many guitars do you own?
It's a good question. I get asked this regularly, and I always forget. But I think it's only maybe 8 or 9, something like that. Oh. But I've got some. Yeah, I know. I should just get loads and loads and loads and loads more guitars. But I think that the problem that I have is I know it's a slippery slope to have maybe 8 or 9, of which 3 or 4 I'll use regularly. And then to think, right, well, I could see a guitar and think, that's quite nice. I'd quite like that. I'd quite like that. I'd quite like that. And before you know it, you've kind of got tens or even hundreds of guitars. And you think, well, where am I going to put these guitars? And I'm not going to be playing them. So,
But you got a favourite, yeah?
So I'd have to say the Fender Strat is like Stratocaster is my favorite guitar. That's the one that I play most kind of on my live streams as well, I think. I've got a gem, an Ibanez gem, which is kind of just out of a shot. And I'm actually very lucky that all of the guitars in my, like, behind me, I've been sent those. So, I mean, it's a world away from, when I was younger, doing gigs in and around London, and having to pay for petrol money and all that kind of stuff, and paying for getting your strings and all of the stuff that you have to account for as a musician. So yeah, it's a world away to have people actually sending me stuff saying, oh, here's a guitar, here's some strings, and here's this and here's that. So yeah, I'm very lucky in that sense, and I can definitely appreciate being on that side of things. That it still kind of blows my mind that people.
Well, we've mentioned Fender about 10 times, so if you're listening, Fender, he needs a new guitar. And he's too busy to ask.
I need to employ you as my PA.
Phil, you're a successful YouTuber and digital content creator, and of course frontman for the rock band Wings of Pegasus. Now, what prompted you to start analysis videos?
This is all tied in with my teaching. So because I was building up a fan base, and people knew me but also knew what I did, and that I taught guitar, I started to get requests over on a site called Patreon. And this is something that people support you. They can say, right, I'll give you, $5 a month to help you do what you want to do, in your career as a musician. So I probably had maybe 24 patrons at that point, and YouTube was the site that I would make videos and upload videos to, including cover videos that people wanted me to do, because they listened to my music and they thought, oh, I'd love to hear you do this particular song. So because I do everything myself, I'd kind of build the tracks up from scratch and record them and produce them and video everything and all the lighting and editing, all the stuff that takes ages. So I'd do that for my patrons. And then somebody said, oh, there's a video on YouTube where this particular guitarist is doing something and I can't figure out what they're doing. So can you let me know what it is? So, and that was my first analysis video, really, was just answering that one question from that one patron that 23 other patrons are going to watch. So I said, oh yeah, no problem, I'll do a video tonight. So I did that video, uploaded it. And yeah, to my surprise, not only did all of my patrons watch it, but thousands of other people watched it. And then tens of thousands of other people watched it. And people then started requesting, oh, can you tell me what this guitarist is doing? Because I've never been able to figure that out. So then I'd start doing analysis videos in that way. And it's, very much guitar orientated to begin with. But I think because I'd played live for so many years, what goes on and what particular things have happened at a show. Like, for example, if somebody can't quite hear their voice back through the foldback clearly, it's things that you've experienced. So when you're watching a performance, that, oh, I can tell here that there's something wrong. And so people say, oh, why did the singer come in at the wrong time then? Or other things that I could explain about it. And, playing along with click tracks, drummers playing to clicks and having things on backing tracks and all these different things. So I guess I had a wide skill set of knowing about stuff, and obviously recording and production and that kind of stuff. So I started to get asked more questions, and that eventually turned into then singers and people asking me, oh, well, what's going on with this singer and that singer? And because I've been through the journey of learning to sing, and I had done some vocal coaching in the past, but I'm not, I don't claim to be a vocal coach. I don't have a course myself, anything like that. I've just been through the process of learning to sing to the point where thankfully people think that at least I can stay in tune a bit. So it's, so that's
Now, I've watched the video of Greed on your website several times. Have you done an analysis of your own performance?
No, I haven't, but
well, I'm requesting it.
You're a rotter.
Yeah, I have been asked multiple times, and I don't know, there's something about looking at myself that I'm not particularly into. But other people have on other channels, which is great. And, people can do whatever they want. And recently, over the last probably 2 or 3 years, a lot of my videos have been about vocals and the way that vocals are now edited and manipulated, so that you're not actually hearing the voice of the singer. It's something that's been post-processed, and notes have been moved to make them more accurate. So on that side of things, because I clearly state on my channel that I don't use Autotune or pitch correction, and because I've learned to sing, I would rather have something that is reflective, truly reflective of my voice, rather than me always listening to myself but knowing that isn't me. It's just something, for me, it doesn't quite ring true.
Talking about what you've just said, I saw you perform a demo version of That's Metal to My Ears. So you didn't auto-tune or pitch correct yourself on that track, or indeed any of your tracks?
No. So I spent probably about a year when I was learning to sing on pitches, of trying to hit a pitch and maintain a pitch and try to get that as accurate as possible. And I think possibly from, learning to play the guitar and the fact that the guitar is tuned and I'm trying to figure things out that I'm listening to, I think that might have helped me in the long run when I'm learning to sing, of knowing where the pitch is at least. So I know when I'm getting close and, where to try and maintain it. And because I've openly said that I don't tune my vocals, somebody did an analysis of one of my songs. It might have been Paris Nord, and they gave the video one of these clickbait titles, something like, Phil from Wings of Pegasus, does he use pitch correction or auto-tune? Or it might have not even been a question. It might have been something that led people to believe that I did edit my vocals and edit the pitch of them. But then in their video, they use the tools that I use and show that I didn't use auto-tune or pitch correction. So it has been independently verified by somebody on their YouTube channel. But
I'm not a magistrate.
No, exactly. But this is it.
I'm going to hand you over to Richard now, because he's got some technical questions.
Oh, yes.
Possibly technical questions. So you've kindly allowed us to repost the analysis of Matt on his own YouTube channel. And the clip you used was Walk Away, which was from the BBC Matt Sings Monro special. Was that clip specified in the requests, or did you choose that?
That was a request. All of the videos that I make are requests from people wanting me to check out a particular artist, band, singer, whoever they may be. So that's just what happened to be on the agenda for that particular night.
Right, you say in the video that Matt has a golden voice. In the title it says he has a golden voice. What do you mean by that?
So, it's not a phrase that I've coined. It's something that other people have said, but I did mention it in my video. For me, I think tone and vocal consistency is a huge part of it. And something that I mentioned in the analysis video is the way that Matt had the ability to take his range from that low talking place, and very much where you would talk pitch-wise, to then what was almost, in that performance, 2 octaves higher. But critically, the tone doesn't change. So what happens with a lot of singers is, as they ascend through their range, their tone will change, because there'll be some kind of maybe pinching on the vocal cords, or just tension in the throat and in muscles around the vocal cords that are, it might be something that's a bad habit that's been picked up over years of singing, but the tone will change. But when you've got a singer who can maintain the tone throughout their range, that's where you think, well, you're going to get the same emotional connection to the spoken voice and that lower pitch as you do to the high notes. So the high notes don't sound like they're coming from a different place. So for me, that definition of a golden voice is something that is so pure and authentic that it's always going to sound the same, Yeah.
So are there any other singers that you would say have a golden voice that you've analysed?
Well, well, generally, the best voices of all time. It's a very simple answer, but well, Frank Sinatra, of course, being in the same bracket of singers, but I would say that back in the 50s, the 60s, and into the 70s as well, you had this caliber of singer who could tell a story with their voice. But also, I mean, that's the thing about Matt. When he sang, he wasn't somebody who's going to be running around the stage and putting on that kind of entertainment, like showmanship around, covering lots of distances. And he didn't need to do that because the entertainment was the voice. So I think with the 50s, 60s and 70s in those decades, you got singers where people would just watch somebody standing on stage. It wasn't about how much dancing they did or how much skin they were showing on in each performance. So it was that, I mean, a golden era of singer who, they did the hard yards, that they worked at their voices, and they played pubs and clubs and honed their craft for sometimes years and years and years and years and years before they then got a break. So then when they got the break, they already knew how to do this thing. It's like, well, they're already the seasoned performer, even though you're seeing them for the first time. So a very simple answer. All of the best voices of all time, they've all got these similarities, and especially when we're talking about the same style, the same genre, the great singers had that ability, like Matt, to blend that spoken word, the storytelling, lyrical content of a song, and deliver that in a way that hit a chord emotionally with an audience. And the other thing to remember is that we're not even necessarily talking about original artists who are writing their own songs. A lot of the art form is taking somebody else's song and performing it like it's your song. And again, that's a huge part that great singers can do that. But you think, well, how do you do that?
Hoagie Carmichael wrote Daddy a letter after Daddy did an album called Sings Hoagie Carmichael, and he thanked Daddy for singing it the way he wrote it, and that was framed. It meant so much to Daddy.
Exactly. It's kind of the hidden art form that, as well as kind of the technical sides of the voice and having tonal consistency and range and control and connecting on an emotional level with an audience, it's that other art form that, how do you turn somebody else's words into your own, like your own story? And that's something that I think, putting your finger on that's like the holy grail. You think, well, how do you do that? But that's the thing that links the great voices and the great singers kind of across all time, really.
Now, Matt was compared to Sinatra quite often. The press often called him the British Sinatra, and he wasn't always happy with that. This is what he had to say in it.
I had the Sinatra tag now since 1960. I've always had Britain's Frank Sinatra. I've never been clear as to what they meant, whether they meant I was to England what Sinatra was to America, or whether I actually sang like Sinatra and all the big influence that Sinatra's had upon me. Well, in actual fact, I started singing, doing impressions of Perry Como. It wasn't Sinatra at all.
So Matt thought he was more like Perry Como than Sinatra. What do you think about that comparison?
I think, as a musician myself, I see everybody individually, and I think that there is a tendency, especially in the media, who don't necessarily understand too much the art form and the way that everybody is independently great because of what they do as a human, and the things that make up their personality and their story of their life that comes through with their voice. So for me, I would say that if I'm hearing different singers, like, for example, if I heard Frank Sinatra, or even if I were looking at a pitch graph of one singer's voice and another singer's voice, just from the look of the lines, I would tell you, well, that's Frank Sinatra's voice and that's Matt Monro's voice, because they are distinct, that they are different. But I think because of media, and even now, media have genres. They have pigeonholes that, well, you're that type of singer, so we're going to put you there. So, and you hear it all the time that, like Matt said there, that somebody is the British version of something else, and vice versa. They're the US version of this British singer. So, yeah, for me, while I appreciate the argument that maybe to some people who, I guess, don't look into the details or can't hear it in detail, they just put it all in the pigeonhole, go, oh, well, that's the same. But I guess that's what my analysis videos are about. They say, well, great singers have a lot of things in common. They got great control, great pitch accuracy. But if you look at their vibrato, for example, you'll see that Matt's vibrato was different to Frank Sinatra's vibrato. They're singing at a different frequency. And yeah, not to get too deep with things, but frequency is music and frequency is sound. If you're singing on a different frequency than another singer, you are inherently different. You can't really compare those two things. I think it's maybe a media thing. But also, Matt having a great voice, I'm sure that he could do a great impersonation of other singers because he would have that control to know how to do that. But when he was singing, his way, that's just his voice, as is the case with every great singer.
Well, the late great disc jockey David Jacobs, who was friends with both Dad and Sinatra, introduced a record by Sinatra on his radio show saying, "This is America's Matt Monro."
Exactly.
Matt didn't think he sounded like Frank, and he did feel there was an influence. This is a clip from Matt's last in-depth interview from 1984. Hang on.
Only Sinatra. You see, this is where the man is unique. I hate to come back to Sinatra, but I think every pop singer should listen to Sinatra because there's so much to be learned from this man.
Did you learn from him?
Oh, yeah. Me, I'm the biggest thief in the world. But I think I went to learn more expertise than anything else.
Yeah.
I don't consciously, and never have, consciously copied Sinatra.
Do you think that influence shows anywhere?
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, relating it to what we were talking about earlier about playing the guitar and being influenced by different players, you pick up on what other players are doing, and it's exactly the same in a vocal sense, that you pick up what other singers might be doing, and that's certainly what Matt would have picked up on. But when you then produce that yourself, it's that Matt certainly would not have been trying to copy Frank Sinatra's placement, his tone, his range, all of these different things, because Matt Monro had that himself. But he's looking at potentially maybe stagecraft, delivery, and the things to make the audience feel comfortable. And there's so many elements to watching another performer and the things that you take from them. Some of them might be, I don't know, I feel like the vocal takeaways would have been minimal because it's not as if Matt didn't have the voice and he's thought, right, I need a voice. How do I get one? I'll watch this person. He already had that. So it's like, well, what is this other singer doing that I can do my version of? So I think it's very much an influence thing that happens with instrumentalists and singers. And it still goes back to that point of taking on as much as you can. It's a huge part of learning is looking at as much as you can. And like Matt said there, pop singers should be watching these great singers. And that still goes now. And that's why I like analysing voices so much, because you can start to look at a voice and think, why is this so unique? Why is this so good? What are they doing? And a singer who might sound nothing like that could take that away and think, right, I'm going to try and implement that idea to my voice. I'm not going to try and copy that voice. Because, I'm a huge believer in just being yourself, using your own voice. And, that's the way to get your authentic sound out there and ultimately to connect with an audience in the strongest way possible, because you're using your voice and not imitating something that you've heard.
So if you were to do a side-by-side analysis, there would be a fair difference between Frank and Matt then, do you think?
Yes, well, I've done analysis videos on those voices independently, and if I were to put them side by side, you would absolutely see a difference. And sometimes, in my videos, not that I don't get requests really to compare voices. It's always, oh, can you look at this? Can you look at that singer? But if I were to compare them, I mean, everybody who watches my channel will know that if I pulled up two graphs of two singers singing the same song, they would look totally different. And even the same style, the same genre, or the same kind of singer that the media wants to kind of pigeonhole, I'll be able to show on screen immediately that we've got differences there. And we're talking about such subtle differences that to one person's ear, they might not really be able to hear any difference. But it's not about being able to hear the difference between voices. It's sensing the difference in the emotion of how that person is singing a particular note. Because when you're looking at it in detail, if a singer puts a little bit more attention into it, say for example there's a particular passage in the song that means something more to them personally, and they're putting across a more personal point, they can drift ever so slightly sharp because of maybe some angst emotionally that they're feeling when they're singing that. And it's really, we're looking at things in real detail here, but that might not mean the same to another singer, so they might be a little bit flat. So there's so much in there that I could absolutely put two Frank's and Matt's lines next to each other and they would look entirely different.
And I mean certainly Sinatra tends to slide between notes and things like that, which Matt doesn't do. I mean, I've always been of the opinion that Frank was a great song stylist, one of the greatest at putting over a song, rather than necessarily a great singer. Whereas I would put Matt in the great singer category just because of the pureness of his tone and the way he could hold a note, whilst being able to read the lyric at the same time. Of course, I work with Michelle, so I'm biased. But what's your take on that?
Yeah, so, I mean, with the analysis video that I made, there are so many points at which I point out Matt being absolutely on pitch. And what tends to happen with some singers, again, it's going to be a tiny difference that people might not notice, but you'll have particular singers who have a really fast onset of vibrato. So it means that when they hit a note, they'll go straight up to ah, and that vibrato will come in straight away. Whereas with Matt, he would hit a note, ah, and that onset of the note he will hold. And in the analysis video that I've shown, he's been as accurate as anyone can ever get at holding that pitch. So you know that he's got that ability to sing straight and the ability to sing, obviously applying vibrato. But the singers that use vibrato all the time don't necessarily have the ability to sing straight, because when you're using vibrato, you're encapsulating more pitch. Therefore, you can't determine where that exact pitch is because the vibrato is throwing your ear off all the time. So if you're going to sing a straight note, and this is why people, when they sing straight notes and they're ever so slightly off pitch, it's going to sound a hell of a lot worse than somebody who's singing off pitch with vibrato, because you've got all of that variation that the ear can never quite pick up where that fundamental pitch is. So, it's something that is shown on my pitch graph in Matt's video. Now, and that, by the way, is a live vocal. So we're talking about doing this live. It's not in the studio where they're kind of trying to hear the best take and that one was the closest pitch, so we'll choose that. It's having the ability to do that live. And again, it's something that maybe Joe Public won't necessarily appreciate, but when you're listening to singers' voices in detail, you'll start to see or hear where one singer's sliding a lot and applying a lot of vibrato, so you can't really, it sounds great, but you can't really pin down that pitch. And then someone that can just hit you right between the eyes, with their, E4, whatever the note might be, and then again apply vibrato at the end. That's always the cherry on top, hitting that note right between the eyes, vibrato at the end. Because again, not every singer can apply vibrato. They might be really accurate pitch-wise, but having that control and consistency is another huge part of it.
So what do you think made Dad so effective at conveying emotion without sounding overly dramatic?
Yeah, this is absolutely the ability to blend his talking voice with his singing voice, and keeping that talking, that storytelling quality to the songs. And I think when we go back to the point of making a song sound like it's your own, that taking somebody else's words and making them your own, being able to tell a story in that authentic way is a huge part of it. And blending that, I mean, that's another thing that's so difficult to do, is blending that talking voice with the singing voice, and again, for it to be tonally consistent, so that it's not like somebody has two different voices. And that's something that Matt did so well. And the thing is, he would do it so well that when you look at the pitch of when he's talking, he's not hitting any pitches. So you think, well, that goes against everything that singers might be trying to do. They're trying to hit notes, they're trying to hit pitches. But then when you look at the great singers, sometimes they're not hitting any pitches, because they know it's not about the note, it's about the feeling. It's about conveying the lyrical content of the song, but the emotion of the song as well. So, yeah, absolutely, that's something that set him apart and set great singers apart, is being able to blend those two things seamlessly. Just that, and this is why when we're listening to any story or any great storyteller, when you're listening, not even singer, somebody telling a story who's got a great voice for it, there's just something about it that is engaging. But then you can get somebody else who's telling you exactly the same story, but maybe they've got a monotone approach to it, and you feel like, well, why am I not engaged? It's the same words. Why am I not engaging with this? But it's just that storytelling quality that you get in great storytellers, and that's what the great singers are. They're great storytellers who blend just amazing vocal technique with that engagement of telling a story that absolutely sounds genuine and authentic to them.
So, based on what you just said, was there anything technically unusual about Dad's voice that might not be obvious to a casual listener? Is it what you just said, or do you feel there's more?
So, a huge part of Matt's voice is something called microtones. And this is something that happens between the lines. So, when you're tuning, like a piano is tuned to A440, it's a standard, it's the graph that I show on my analysis videos. It's standard pitches that are finite. Now, the problem with that is, like, when you're listening to one piano player and another piano player, if they were to play the same piece twice in a row and keep all of the timing the same, and keep, for example, the velocity or the speed at which they're pushing down the keys and the force with which they're pushing down the keys, if you were to keep that the same from one piano player to another piano player, you'd say, well, which is which piano player? And people wouldn't know, because the tuning is exactly the same, the timing is exactly the same, and the force being used is exactly the same. But now when you get a singer to sing the same song, and then you get another singer to sing it, you say, well, which is the singer? Which one's which? And you know straight away. And you think, well, why do you know straight away? Obviously, if they've got very different tones, that can give it away. But you've got microtones where singers don't hit lines all the time. And that's something that Matt absolutely could nail a note, as we just discussed, and apply vibrato. But he also absolutely would go all over the place, but in context. And again, that's another art form that you're talking about. Well, how do I know when to sing out of tune? It's like there's no book on that. The only time that you sing in microtones is due to whatever you're singing about and the emotion that you're singing about. So again, as much as people listening might think, well, yeah, he does things that, if singers are learning to sing, that you say, well, you don't want to be here, you want to be here. And then they say, yeah, but Matt Monro was here. So what does that mean? He said, well, yeah, but you can't put your finger on that. That's just what he did. So yeah, for singers, they think, the only advice that I can give and do give on my channel is that something that Matt would be doing is using his authentic voice and just doing it the way that he does it. And that's how you get into these places. And it might be like Matt potentially looking at Frank and saying, what can I do in my performance? And it's just about, well, what you're watching is a genuine performance. So take what they're doing genuinely and apply it to yourself and think, right, well, what's my voice like? How can I do the similar kind of thing? But yeah, certainly that's something that I think is a massively overlooked part of singing in general is the space between these lines. It's not all about being pitch perfect, because the emotion is between these lines. And that's the kind of thing that, yeah, Matt would absolutely exploit that, to get that connection with the audience.
You said in your video that Matt turns his performance into musical theatre. His vocal tells a story. Outside of, obviously, musical theatre, is this sort of lost art, do you think, now? Yeah,
I think where the entertainment side of it has taken over, and it's more about choreography, dancing, how much you move around on stage, and whether that is in part due to technology allowing singers to do more and not have to worry too much about hitting notes. For example, using Autotune live, it means that you've now got a safety net. So if you are running around and you're getting close to the note, it doesn't really matter, because the technology will make sure that you do hit the note. Whether that's a part of it, it might be, it might not. But yeah, thinking back to the entertainment side of it just being the voice, the great singers knew that when they watched other singers, they weren't running around on the stage because the attraction was the voice. So you've got to work on your voice. And it was always the case that back in the days of the 50s, the 60s and the 70s that I've already mentioned, radio airplay was the thing. That you had to get on the radio. How did you get on the radio? Well, you had to sound better than the other people. It's like, oh yeah, but I dance around a lot. You said, well, yeah, that doesn't help. That's not going to help you get radio airplay. So, it really was a cut and dried thing that to be featured, you had to be the best. You had to be better than other people. So, yeah, I think in that sense, certainly different. And certainly that's where the entertainment side was. People could appreciate the voice, and it wasn't really about the moving around so much. And yeah, of course, there are still singers that don't run around the stage and do that kind of thing nowadays. But I'd say that isn't the mainstream. The mainstream has very much gone the other way of more physical exertions on stage and being commended for your dancing. But that's another thing that I will point out on my channel, is somebody that might be doing a lot of that isn't actually singing. So they're not having to worry about even making a noise because it's on a backing track and the lead vocal isn't actually being produced live. So, yeah.
Well, Daddy didn't do dancing. He didn't move out the stage. And for anyone that's interested, there is the best clip ever where he's on one of the shows in America and he does, what is it? Let's Face the Music and Dance. I'm not going to spoil it, but anyone that's out, you've got to watch it. It's hysterical.
Matt was very lucky actually in the fact that it was natural. He didn't have singing lessons, and in fact he was thinking about it at one point, and he spoke to a singing teacher and they turned around to him and said, no, I wouldn't touch it. It's perfect as it is. Don't do anything with it. You don't need to know any more than you already know.
Again, that's a huge part, by the way, of teaching and having a great coach who understands the voice, because lesser teachers would say, well, you've got a great voice, but I want you to have lessons with me. I want to make X amount of money from you. So I'm going to teach you things, or maybe make up things that you don't necessarily need. So yeah, as a teacher myself, it's great to hear where somebody has gone through that process and a teacher has actually said, you don't need to do anything with that. You've already got it.
Well, one of the best vocal coaches in the States, and composer and arranger and everything, he said to Dad, it's a God-given gift. Go away and look after it. He said, I can't teach you anything, which was nice.
Yeah.
Fans often talk about Matt's great tuning and his... just listen to a little bit of this. This is just shows a little bit about his breath control and his way of holding a note. My love. Yeah, so basically you could hold these notes strong and steady for 3 weeks.
Yeah.
But there's one track that people often say that he sings flat, and he sings. Supposedly it's at the end of his version of Spanish Eyes, particularly the first part of the word "me." Now this is the clip in question. Hopefully this works.
Say you and your Spanish eyes will wait for me.
Now, I've always thought that's interesting. It's if you listen just to the vocal on its own, though, it doesn't sound like that.
Mm.
Say you and your Spanish eyes will wait for me.
And I'd like you to do yourself. I've put that through analysis software, and he's pretty much dead on. And it's a very strange thing. It seems to be the arrangement, the complexity of the arrangement, which is a Billy May arrangement in the background, that makes it sound flat. I mean, I'd love to know what you think about that.
So, I mean, when a singer, there could be so many reasons for this, but when a great singer is singing, they are singing the average pitch, really, of what they're listening to, the instrumentation, and instruments do go out of tune. And typically, if you're singing along with an orchestra and a string section, for example, but this goes for, it's why instruments are tuned, because they are not tuned at points, so they have to get to the point of being tuned. So in a string section, for example, you'll have violinists playing all the same thing, but in each of those players' tendencies, they might vibrato more, they might vibrato less, they might be, a millimeter higher up the string than the person next to them. So it means that if you're looking at all of them plotted on a graph, they're not all going to be perfect, because you've got this human variation, that human factor, that it's not a machine that's coming up with this. So it means that when a great singer is singing, they're hearing potentially instruments that might be slightly flat, and other instruments like a horn section, for example, that might be slightly sharp, or even at A440, for example. And it's what the singer locks into. Like, what are they listening to? What are they singing along with? So when they play it in isolation, you think, well, this sounds great, it sounds fine. But then when you put it into the backing, you think, well, instrumentation-wise, there might be something that is slightly sharp that's taking your focus away from the voice. So, I mean, it might be interesting to listen to it again and maybe listen out for the predominant instrumentation in the background that might be at the same level, or the predominant instrument that's taking your focus alongside the voice. Because there might be other instrumentation that is actually underneath at the same pitch as Matt's voice that he's singing along to. And
there's a lot going on in that arrangement.
There is.
Billy May did do these complex things,
But this is it, that the more instruments you add in, the more the ear of the singer is picking out the pitch and thinking, where does it feel right for me to sing along? And again, in some analysis videos that I've done, where I've isolated the vocal and played it alongside the guitar, for example, and it's been fine. But then something that was recorded at a different time in the studio has been added, and that might be sharp. So the singer was great in the studio, but now you've got something that's sharp, that's taking your focus, which makes the singer sound flat. So, and of course there's no way that the singer can do anything about that, because they recorded it all in the studio beforehand. So this, and this is the problem, maybe, that the producers don't, or maybe can't listen to it in that kind of detail, that they think, oh, hang on, this is taking the instrumentation to a different place because that instrument's so predominant in the mix.
Well, it was done live, the orchestra and Dad, in one studio.
Yeah,
it's very different.
Again, I mean, it's interesting because hearing everything in a studio setup, hearing every instrument clearly is going to be really difficult.
Yeah.
And then, I mean, again, really getting into details, I'd love to know the arrangement of where Matt was stood, where the instruments were, and what he was closest to. Like, or what is he getting a predominant feed of?
Yeah.
Like, where's he basing his pitch? Because it might have been the case that he was in a section that sounded a particular way that was all tuned, but then the other section there, some people might have been a bit sharp, but he's singing along to this.
Placing it where he's hearing it.
I think he's likely to be furthest away from the brass, to be honest. You know, if you're going to be, I mean, he did have a vocal booth as such when he was at Capitol doing that, but it was
only two sides, wasn't it?
Well, three sides. It was three. Yeah, it had a roof above him as well, but it was yes turned to one way with the band behind him. But he would probably predominantly, I would guess, because he didn't like using headphones, he would predominantly hear the rhythm section, I would think, above all.
Yeah, I mean, it would be interesting. I mean, it might be something that I can dive into a bit and find out, you know, what, because I think more often than not it is like really upfront instruments like the horn section, those kinds of things that are almost like a lead instrument. So when somebody is singing and holding a note, you're hearing the horn section at the same level, so it's something that can kind of throw the ears off a bit, whereas generally strings and other things in that instrumentation world, they kind of fall under a bit. They're kind of supporting the voice rather than something that's so brash it's going to say, right, I'm competing with this lead instrument here. So
you're absolutely right. If you were watching a theatre production and then all of that was going on, you wouldn't know what to watch, you know, and it's the same with that. You don't know what to listen to, really, or what's overpowering, you know. It will send you a copy.
Yeah, that'd be great.
Yeah. And in more recent times, you've been very vocal about performers miming on stage and the problems of Autotune, and you'll get no arguments from me there, really. Do you think music is being ruined?
I think it's all subjective, and that there are some people that don't mind it at all. And I think my main issue with it is potentially in the future people not knowing what they're listening to and giving credit to something that isn't exactly what they're thinking about. Like, I did a video recently where there's a guy judging people's pitch accuracy. And there were 5 singers, and he was giving them all a percentage. And, you know, like one was 94%, one was 95%, and they're all singing the same song. But 4 out of the 5 voices were tuned, post-processed, with Melodyne. So they've dragged their voice to the notes. So it means that somebody is judging 4 voices that they don't know are tuned. Yeah. So, of course, you think, well, so what's going to happen in the future now? Somebody's going to, say, oh, I loved that performance. It was so accurate. This person's got such an amazing voice. They must have worked at it for so long. But then you say, well, no, they didn't. They just dragged their voice to the note. You think, well, that's a totally different thing than getting, credit for working at your voice and working at pitch and being able to hit pitches accurately. So that's my main issue, really, is, first of all, being a music lover myself and being a fan of different singers and different artists that are doing things that I think are impressive, like Matt pairing together all of that vocal technique with pitch accuracy, because pitch accuracy and, like we just heard, holding a note with consistent vibrato, holding that pitch, that is a skill. That is something that if you're trying to learn to do that, it's going to take you a hell of a long time. But if you've got somebody who hasn't learned to do that, but they can do it on the screen and move it, you think, well, should that person get as much plaudits as the person who is actually genuinely doing it? And I think that's a really important distinction to make, so that you've got that side of things for people knowing whether singers are actually genuinely singing or not, and when you're now getting people judging voices that aren't actual voices, you think, well, this is dangerous territory now. We've got to take a step back and say, well, what is a real voice? And yeah, I mean, generally, the reason why I'm doing so many videos now is that, of course, once I pointed out one performance that might have been from a very well-known band who are performing and people have spent thousands of dollars on tickets, and then I do a video showing that it was lip-synced, mimed, then they think, well, what did I pay that money for? You know, I could have put that money on rent or food and other things, and they're genuinely disappointed that they weren't getting something live, that it's literally going to be the same thing the next night that's loaded up for the next 1,000 or 10,000 people that might be watching. So, of course, once I did that video, my inbox exploded with people saying, oh, well, what about this band? What about this artist? What about this? And everyone now wants to know, well, what am I paying for? If I go and watch a live show, is it going to be live? So, yeah, that's why certainly and I think this is just the way that the music industry is going now. It's going down this route now where nobody knows anymore. So they're all asking me, yeah, but can you check out this? Can you check out that? So every video I'm getting through bands and artists where it's just fans who want to know. That's all they want, really. And for me, I don't think there's a problem with just letting people know what's going on, because at the end of the day, it's their money. Yeah, I think you have a right to know what you're going to be listening to. Yeah. Because I get the emails afterwards from if I look at a performance from maybe 3 or 4 years ago, and people then realise that it wasn't what they thought it was. I get the emails of people saying, I can't believe that they didn't say that it wasn't live. But this is the whole thing with the advertising of live tours. It always says live. So that's the difficulty, that there must be somewhere, and I've spoken to lawyers about this, there must be somewhere in the small print of the tickets, the terms and conditions, that state that it might not be live, even though you're selling tickets to a live tour. So,
the person standing on stage, that's the live part.
Yeah, exactly. They are alive.
They're there. They're breathing.
They forgot the A at the beginning. But
it doesn't say live singing. It just says live. There's the legal technicality.
Exactly.
I find it really interesting that people just can't hear pitch correction a lot of the time, and so I've tried a little experiment. So I thought, what would Matt sound like with Autotune? Well, to be honest, the problem was that first of all I tried it. I just put it literally just to pull him straight up into 440 equal temperament, and it made very little difference. So I've gone to the extremes, and I've processed Matt's voice as heavily as possible, taking out all the human traits, any sliding notes, any vibrato, So Matt here, this is Matt who's turned into a robot, something probably a little bit akin to Cher in Believe. Hang on.
Come back, my love. I know I was wrong, and now I pray that I can be strong.
So anybody who's never thought, oh, I wonder what Autotune really sounds like, there you go. That's a prime example of how you can murder a singer with a little bit of Autotune. I think pitch correction can be a useful tool if it's used sparingly. I don't know whether you're aware, but I work for the Matt Monro estate, but I also do work for record companies and various things like that. I work on remastering. Occasionally have to mix things down, and I have on occasion used it on some unreleased material, just not wholesale. I won't use it wholesale because we end up with things just like we've heard then, but I have used it. There's a dodgy note in an unreleased track, but the singer's not around anymore, or they've retired, or the voice would be completely different if they tried to sing it because it was done 50 years ago or whatever. And so I have then just brought that note back up. Sometimes it's just a single note within the whole thing. Do you see that as an acceptable thing to do, or are you against that as well?
I think personally that's an acceptable thing, and with studio recorded songs, certainly it's been going on for years and decades of even back with tape, with speeding up tape, slowing down tape to adjust pitch. So there has been correction of pitch over the years, and now that it's literally an industry standard that everything that's produced in the mainstream music industry and released will have pitch correction on there. Obviously, some artists and singers will have it to more of a degree than others. But for me, I draw the line at making somebody sound totally different to how they would sound live. And I've looked at pitch correction being applied ridiculously, almost to the level where it does sound like auto-tune.
Yeah.
But it can't be auto-tune because I know the way that it's been done in the studio, that they've just been that bad at applying it. So my focus is, and this is something that I do for my analysis videos that I don't go into or show in my videos, is the research and looking at the singer's voice and what it is like naturally. Try to get as many genuine live performances as I can so that I get a blueprint of their authentic voice. So then when they release a song, like you've said there, say for example, there's one note that's just a little bit flat and you just moved it up a little bit. That's not now making their voice sound inauthentic to how they normally sing. And nobody's going to, I don't think a lot of people would have a problem with that because they would then go and watch them live and the person won't be able to tell the difference. And you say, oh, did you notice that it just so happens live he nailed the note, whereas I moved it up, but did you notice the difference between that note and the one that I've done? Nobody would notice because the voice, like you said, trying to apply pitch correction to a great voice, they're already there.
Yeah.
That's what pitch correction does. It makes lesser singers sound better. That's the whole, that's why it's taken off. Is because the music industry can now use that on other voices to think, oh, we can move them to there. But obviously the music industry is now calibrating everything, and this is why it starts to sound a bit weird, to A440 with no variation. Because if they can take a great voice and calibrate it to what they can calibrate a lesser voice to, it means that's job done, that they can get every singer to sound the same.
Yeah.
So, and yeah, that's kind of where I draw the line, is that, I can look at, and I have done in my analysis videos, pitch corrected performances, and then I compare that to a genuinely live performance and show the difference. And then you can say, this pitch corrected vocal is not representative of them as a singer.
Yeah.
Because it's night and day between how they're perceived, in the mainstream industry, but then when you go and watch them live, what they can actually do. So that's where, I think my line is, but I think that's an artistic line myself as well as a musician, that I think that, it's really important to be honest about, how you're singing, what you're doing. And even if you are missing notes, I think it's great to be honest with your audience, because there have been plenty of singers who haven't been accurate, but they've been huge selling artists because this is something that's distinct about their voice, that it is slightly off, but it still sounds great because it's them.
Yeah.
So I think the problem in the future is everyone's now going to have the same pitch accuracy, and it's getting into dangerous territory now where they're releasing stuff that was recorded in the 70s and in the 80s, now calibrating it.
Yes.
So that Freddie Mercury now sounds exactly the same as artists that are releasing their songs now. So it's like leveling that playing field rather than allowing the great singers who have that thing that you can't put your finger on, is saying, oh, well, let's get rid of that because we want it all now to be the same. So that, we can get our singers who could never do what those singers did, but now we can get them to sound the same. But anyway, to answer that question, for me, it's all about authenticity.
Yeah.
And that is something that I started a few months ago that unfortunately I haven't had a lot of time to jump into as a project, but it's called Authentic Vocal. So it's letting people know exactly what they're listening to and what somebody's authentic voice is, so that when you're listening to their voice in a recording, then when you turn up live, whether you're going to hear a live vocal and all that kind of stuff, is something that I've got a registered trademark for.
Right.
Which hopefully in the future, I'm hoping to roll out with shows, like live shows, so that people, when they're buying tickets, that they know what they're going to watch. So they know that it's going to be fully live, rather than going and watching something and getting disappointed that it's not what they paid their money for. So that's a potentially big project, but something that's as well as all the other stuff that I do, that I might have to push in the future. But it's very much me kind of getting in touch with my contacts and different artists and bands who might want to have this particular logo on their tickets.
And
the people that
Fender,
are
of course. Fender, don't forget Fender.
No, I think they've had enough mention in this particular video.
Now, Dad learnt his trade singing in pubs, clubs, talent contests, and he worked his way up the ladder. Now, with the rise of TV talent shows giving instant fame and the ability to release music instantly as well, even when you have very little talent or experience, thanks to Autotune, pitch correction, or even having your voice replaced by AI. So where do you see the music industry heading now?
I guess this is why I'm asked to look at so many things and get so many requests, especially with AI. But I mean, that's its own kind of animal. I've said on my channel how that's already out of control. That it's already imitating voices, that the AI, and the way that AI works, it has to be trained on a data set. So you're giving AI stuff to learn from, and it's learning from all of that stuff and then producing its own version of it. Now, at no point did the government say, well, before we feed AI copyright material that it doesn't own, we should stop and just say, right, well, let's make sure that we get legislation for this so it's all above board. That never happened. No. So now you've got AI that can imitate any voice in the world. And you think, well, how did it get the data set to learn that person's voice? The reason is because it was never, ever policed. So I think, unfortunately, AI, like I said, it's its own animal that, for me, is already out of control. But because there are things that are being created that you think, well, how has that even been allowed? Because even with face swapping technology, you think the person whose face has been swapped, they haven't given their consent to now be in this video, to be shown, for their likeness to be shown. So the fact that that's all legal and it's okay, and the government didn't see anything wrong with it, I think.
But there's so many scams. I mean, Martin Lewis was saying that they used his face to promote a product, and then Anton Deck, they did the same, and they didn't promote the product. I mean, it should be completely illegal, shouldn't it? And yet they got away with it.
I think the problem is that government and legislation, laws, they work at such a slow speed. AI, like as we're talking here, AI is learning. That's what it does. As long as you keep it plugged in, it's going through, thousands of different calculations of how to imitate this and how to replicate that. So it's moved so quickly. I also think maybe the people in government don't really understand what AI is, or certainly didn't 5 or 10 years ago, when somebody should have said, hang on, I can see the capability of this, and this is going to get out of control soon. In the future, you might be able to take somebody's face and get them to promote something, and that can't be legal. But it was never policed, so it is a shame. But aside from AI and talent contests, all that kind of stuff, I think fundamentally the problem with it is, first of all, somebody who has been working at in a supermarket or something for years, and then they enter a talent competition. And this is actually, it's kind of got two sides of it, because there's a mental health side to it as well. But they enter a TV competition. They might do really well on it. They're now very well known, and they might sign a record deal with Simon Cowell's Psycho label or Sony, and they now release an album. And they're not used to this world. They're not used to fame. And they haven't honed their craft over years and years and years and years and years. So for them, it's an absolute shock to the system. It's like a whirlwind. But then the problem with these shows is, after that album's released, if it didn't do as well as they thought it would, you get dropped. And it is just...
I've always said how cruel it is, because one band who was put together from Pop Idol, I think it was, they were put together and had the fastest selling record, the this, the that, big arenas, and a year later, two of them continued to make it. The two boys, I think one was back at B&Q the following month, I mean, trying to adapt to that level of stardom and adulation is hard. And then you're just getting accustomed a little bit to what you think is always what you've wanted. And then, bam, it's gone. I don't think there's anything crueler.
Yeah,
I think it's better never to have achieved it than to have that happen.
Yeah, it's a huge part of the industry that is totally, I don't know, taboo, or people don't know about it.
Yeah.
And yeah, the problem is that once somebody's had that kind of exposure, that kind of fame, and I always say that, especially with the music industry, and I guess you can still include TV talent shows in this, it's the illusion of success through fame.
Yeah.
Nobody understands that fame doesn't pay you anything. No. People know your face, and especially when you're now no longer, the flavour of the month, or you've been dropped by the record label, you've got fame, and you think, yeah, but I haven't got money. So how do I get money? You go for a job interview, and they say, "Oh, you're the guy from that." I say, "Yes, I am." But
you used to be.
Yeah,
the worst, weren't you the guy that used to be?
Didn't you used to be such and such? Yeah.
I work on cruise ships mainly, doing talks on Daddy's life and music. And I did between 5 and 7 months at sea every year. And then COVID came, and I was isolated because I have multiple sclerosis, and so vulnerable. 2 years I was locked here. And then I was quite down one day, and my son said to me, "Are you all right?" I said, "Yeah." I said, "Actually, I don't mind not travelling." I said, "I miss the applause." And I said, "That's a terrible thing to admit, but it's kind of affirmation that you were doing something right." And, hand on heart, that's how I felt. And so that little bit of glimmer of not adulation, but, acceptance, if you like. And I think if it was taken away like it was it was a real downer. It's a natural drug, isn't it, applause?
Yeah. But it's that affirmation, because I think everyone has vulnerability and might question themselves, what they do, like lack confidence, all of these different things that you can roll into this kind of mental health ball. That there are so many things that we need as humans, like especially with COVID, like just interaction with other humans.
Other people,
well, once that's taken away, you think, well, hang on, we're not really designed for this world of having no contact. And having affirmation from other people, it is an important thing. And like you say, it's a huge part of doing what you do. And once that is taken away, and I think in the most severe sense and severe cases, when you are suddenly shot into that limelight and you've got sudden fame, that's the biggest cliff you're going to fall off that you can ever get, because you're doing everything day in, day out, really busy, everyone recognizes you, signing autographs, all that, and then it is suddenly to nothing.
Well, one of the guys from the group that I was talking about, years and years later, it was only a couple of years ago, he was on The Voice, and nobody turned round, and I literally sat here crying for him. I thought, oh my God, to put yourself through that. And everybody knows who you are that's watching, and nobody turned. I thought, my heart went out to him. Do you know what I mean? It's just a cruel industry at times.
Yeah. I mean, I've seen documentaries on, boy bands back in the 90s, like especially, where first of all, they weren't a band. I mean, they're not really a band in terms of playing instruments and singing, but they are, first of all, they're put together.
Yeah.
So they're not even, it's very much a financial decision and something that a record label is doing, and maybe a management company is doing it with the intention of making money from 4 or 5 guys. So those 4 or 5 guys, like I said, it's the illusion of fame. They're put together, they're flown around the world, they're famous, they think, oh, this is amazing. But then when it all ends, you think, well, first of all, which of your songs do you own?
No.
And they'll say, well, I don't own any.
Yeah.
Say, well, where are you making your money from? And they'll say, well, then there must be some kind of money that we're due because of all the shows we did. And then say, no, you've signed contracts.
And you'll have a contra list a mile long of what you owe them.
Yeah, exactly. It's like they were signing things that, age sometimes 16, 17, 18, that because of the whole illusion of fame, they've signed it thinking fame means success and financial success and financial viability for the future. But I mean, this is why my channel, I always say, even about, not even talking about talent shows, I do say that if you're offered a recording contract, obviously read it really carefully, but my advice would be don't sign it. Because, like, the example that I always give is myself, that if you're signing a recording contract, you can lose your publishing rights, means that every time your song's played, you don't get paid. Mm-hmm. And you're going to be signing away 95% of everything else. So you're making 5% on anything. And that might actually be quite good if you get 5%. I'm sure they'll probably push it up to 97 or 98 in their favour. So thinking about that, as an independent artist myself, I have to sell 5% of another artist who is signed to a major label. And not every artist who's signed to a major label is selling millions and millions and millions of records. No. They might sell tens of thousands, maybe hundreds of thousands. So as an independent artist, I can think, right, well, I've got to set my bar at 5% of what the other artist is selling. And when you then look at it and break it down, you think, well, if I am getting all the money for every album, all the money for any radio airplay, then, or all the money for iTunes downloads, Amazon, streaming sites, you think, well, and merchandise, there's so many parts to it. And I've got merch on my channel that people buy. When you control everything, then you think, right, well, I can realistically make the same money as somebody who's, famous and signed, but I'm not famous and signed, but I'm earning the same amount. And I mean, for me personally, I prefer it that way, that I can go out and people don't, well, more often than not, people don't say, oh, you're the guy from, from that or this or that. And I mean, the only times that has happened where they point me out is because they know me from what I do. Yeah. And for the things that I own. So that's absolutely fine, because it means that, oh, well, it's obviously working in some sense that I've got to a point where people recognize me for being myself, yes, rather than being signed onto a record label who, can just chuck you out the back door whenever they see fit. So, a huge kind of mental health side to it. And there'll be loads of cases where, loads of artists have, absolutely just fallen off the wagon because, within a few months, your life's fallen apart.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Some of them have even, I know that have put got a mortgage on a house and they didn't realise that they can't afford it. So crazy stuff.
Image and style seem to be what the record industry sees as the most important thing now, and it's likely that if Dad was starting up today, he wouldn't stand a chance. Do you think we'll ever get back to the days of real talent being the most important thing?
I hope so. That's my hopes for the future. I think it's really going to need, I think, education of the audience, who it fundamentally comes down to knowing what is going on. And the only way that people can appreciate, genuine artistry, genuine talent, is for them to know that it is that in the first place. So I would like in the future, and, I'm working at different things and trying my best to hopefully in the future, because everything's going, I think it's really at a crossroads now where the industry can go one way or it can go the other way, or we can have a split where AI, and that can be its own kind of road down there. If you like AI music, if you want to create AI music, then you go and do that. And as long as it has to be disclosed. That is kind of in the terms and conditions of streaming sites. So if you want to go down that road and appreciate it, then you can do it. It's got to be the case that that that's what you're listening to. But then when we're getting to artists who are singing or singing live, or be seen to be singing live, then and even kind of in the studio, it's having this fork in the road where, again, it's subjective. If you like going to a show and you're there for the dancing and the entertainment, you're not really bothered about hearing a live vocal and all that kind of stuff, then you can go down that road, and that it's that road, and you happily pay your money because you don't mind. But then there has to be an opposite to that, where you've got people who do want to watch genuine singing and don't want that other thing, then you think, well, it's the education. They've got to know what they're going to be listening to. And that particular road will be the road where, you know, I don't think the industry will ever get back to it only being about talent.
No.
Because unfortunately for the music industry, that doesn't mean revenue. If you start now going back to, right, only the best people can be featured, you say, but they're 1 in a million, if not a billion. So how are we going to make lots of money from them? We need 1 million people to be seen as the best. And that's where pitch correction, auto-tune and lip syncing comes in. So it's a lot more financially viable, and they'll make a hell of a lot more money for less work. So, yeah, I think hopefully in the future, I don't know how it's going to be possible. I'll try my best myself to create an avenue where all the other stuff going on in the industry will still go on, but there will be a place where you can go to see genuine talent, authentic artistry, and all that kind of stuff. So, yeah, I think that's the viewpoint on it. Realistically, I don't think the whole industry is now going to go back to it, because it's just not. Sadly, it's not a financial model that makes the most profit, and that's what it's always going to come down to.
Well, Dad left a legacy of music behind, which thankfully still burns brightly today. So finally, Phil, what legacy do you want to leave behind?
I haven't really thought about this, but I guess I would like people to think of myself and my channel as just a place to go to get objective truth, and to be able to look at things with objectivity, because that's another huge part of it, that what I'm pointing out sometimes can evoke a subconscious maybe, but a subjective emotional response that maybe something somebody has been a fan of for years didn't know what it was. So the initial reaction to that is either denial or anger or calling me names for just pointing it out. So I think, and I think it's a lot better to be hated for telling the truth than for me to perpetuate a lie, and I know it's a lie. And thousands of people going to watch this amazing singer, and every time they sing live, they never miss a note, and they're the best singer since A, B, or C. And then I know deep down that they're paying money to go and watch the same recording every night. I hope that maybe in the future, it will just be a place where people can just get honesty and know that it's subjective, and that all I'm doing is doing requests. Like every request that comes through, I will look at. It's not me on a witch hunt or anything. And I think people that watch my channel will know. I look at so many different genres. There's so many different and bands that I'm a fan of. But if I feature them on the channel, and the pitch monitoring software is an objective tool, it will show you what's happening. I'm not going to kind of cover the screen and say, oh, I like this band, so don't look at this. Yeah. I'm just going to say, well, this is what it is, as all of my analysis videos are. So I've kind of got that view on it. But then going into the future, I would love to be able to give music fans the option of choosing what they want to listen to. Because for me, that's a huge part of it. Like, I'm I guess in the privileged position that I know what's real and I know what isn't, so I can choose to listen to the real stuff because that's my subjective choice that I make. Whereas I know that a lot of people that aren't musically inclined, maybe don't have my background and can't hear things as clearly and can't analyze things with software, they don't know what they're listening to, and they're kind of drifting around because they say, well, where are the genuine artists? How do I know that somebody is a genuine artist and has all of the things that I value as a fan of a band, as a singer, or whichever artist it may be? Fans have particular values, and if they see an artist with those values, they obviously hold them in higher regard than other artists, and that's who they choose to spend their money on. But we've now got this, I think, probably a generation of listeners, but even the younger generation don't know what they're listening to. No. They don't know that it's pitch corrected and auto-tuned, and like I said, judging people's voices that are all tuned. But yeah, just giving this generation the education so that you say, right, here's an artist that's totally genuine. They perform live, and you can go to their live show that's next Tuesday. And it might not even be a huge show. It might be just a small venue, but it is a genuine thing. And people will say, well, actually, I'd rather go to that than to go to watch this huge show that isn't actually live. You know, and I think that can only be a good thing to music, but also a good thing for independent artists.
Absolutely. But I mean, if anyone out there is not familiar with Phil's work or wants to learn more, please go to wingsofpegasus.com. Live streams are on Tuesdays and Saturdays, and his analysis videos, which are absolutely fascinating, Sunday, Wednesdays and Fridays. I don't know how he fits it all in, but Phil, thank you so much for joining us. It was a great pleasure, and Richard and I wish you well for the future.
Indeed.
Okay, thank you. And thanks for the invitation. It's very much appreciated.
And if you've enjoyed this podcast, please do think about giving us a review. 5 stars would, of course, be appreciated. And if you want to get in touch with us in any way, the email address is pod@mattmonro.com. That's pod@mattmonro.com. And you can contact us about anything you like, questions, stories, whatever takes your fancy. And we'll see you next month.
Goodbye.